Welcome to the Flag Bearer channel. This is Little Known Black History Facts. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. How blaxploitation films saved Hollywood. They say that Shaft is a bad mother. Shut your mouth. Those are the words from one of the most famous and successful black films of the 1970s. When the advent of television had become increasingly popular in the homes of average Americans, the growing popularity of television shows presented traditional movie theaters with steep competition. This meant there was less money fueling the industry, thus creating a decline in filmmaking and profits. By the 1960s, the golden age of Hollywood had met an unceremonious end. Many of the stars of the era were retired, and others were dead. It was clear that Hollywood needed some new blood to survive. In the 1970s, the major studios had yet to recover completely from competition from the recently invented television technology and the doubling of film production cost. The major Hollywood studios' combined distribution of 400 films per year dropped to an average of only 250 per year. This low supply of films hurt them. To combat the decline, they changed their strategies. They needed to minimize production costs by making smaller, more specialized movies or produce a giant blockbuster hit. Blaxploitation films resulted. Movies like Shaft and Superfly were very low-budget features, targeted a very narrow market, the African American audience. Many white filmmakers made handsome profits from the blaxploitation era films. In the 1970s, black audiences and film productions featuring black actors resurrected an industry that was sinking. At that time, African Americans made up 30% of theater audiences, but large studios paid them little to no attention. Prior to then, Hollywood spent huge sums of money on films featuring popular white celebrities that promoted their cultural view of glamour and luxury. Towards the end of the 1970s, the idea of glamour and glitz was waning. People had grown tired of movies featuring Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers dancing, Esther Williams swimming and singing, and movies of that type. The golden age of Hollywood stars such as Clark Gable, Cary Grant, and others were losing their luster and star power. The biggest movie of 1963, Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor, flopped at the box office, even though it had an astronomical budget of $44 million. A huge movie budget at that time. The big studios were on the verge of possible bankruptcy. The major Hollywood studios were scrambling to reorganize and realign themselves with the rapidly changing film landscape. Facing dire circumstances, Hollywood executives began on a small degree to bankroll films featuring all black or majority black cast. In 1969, Hollywood rolled out Cotton Comes to Harlem, directed by Ossie Davis. The movie received a modest amount of commercial success. That modest success led to a formula to spend little money and gain big profits from producing black films. The result was the rise of what has been called blaxploitation films. Melvin Van Peebles is known as the father of the blaxploitation film. Van Peebles ended up making one of the most controversial movies in American history, Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, considered the film that sparked the blaxploitation era in Hollywood. Initially, the film was screened in only 2 theaters in the United States, Atlanta and Detroit. It went on to gross $15.2 million at the box office. But it was the financial success of the movie Superfly that shocked Hollywood. The film was made on a $500,000 budget, but earned $11 million at the box office. As a result, the industry began flooding movie theaters with knockoffs carrying similar themes. Most directors and filmmakers were white, while the actors black, but it was the first time since Hollywood's inception that blacks dominated top-billed movies. In response, black moviegoers rapidly consumed the films that featured blacks in dark and urban landscapes fighting the man or the system. Once movies emerged casting blacks as leads and in more culturally perceived roles, ticket sales skyrocketed. This was the life-giving breath that brought economic life back into Hollywood. The profits from blaxploitation films literally saved Hollywood from total bankruptcy. The films were financially successful and had finally placed black actors in leading roles. but they were also criticized for the romanticized depiction of poverty-stricken communities and rampant problems like drugs and crime. Sadly, many of these films featured people who often lived in the underbelly of the American economy. Blaxploitation films celebrated and made heroes of pimps, prostitutes, pushers, hustlers, gangsters, ex-cons, hitmen, preachers, and militant revolutionaries who triumphed over the white establishment within the corrupt and racist system. These films were originally aimed at an urban African-American audience, but the genre's audience appeal soon broadened across racial and ethnic lines. Hollywood realized the potential profit of expanding the audiences of blaxploitation films. Hollywood invested in blaxploitation films to save the industry just until enough movie theaters were built in the suburbs so that they would no longer have to rely on inner-city African-American audiences to buy movie tickets. The broad reach to international audiences was also a market in which studios would significantly recoup their profits. While most of these blaxploitation films received backlash in the black communities for presence of stereotypical characters, they represented one of the earliest examples of the use of black actors, and these actors were the heroes of black movies. In response to criticism, studios and directors defended blaxploitation movies by saying that they were simply fulfilling audiences' demands. A good portion of those movies also represented studios' efforts to target what was for them a new market, African Americans. Before the blaxploitation era, black actors rarely had leading roles in widely distributed films. With the arrival of blaxploitation films, they often could choose their roles, and frequently the storylines were built around their respective characters. In spite of the negative reactions on the part of many in the black community, they continued to be produced, as Hollywood recognized that these movies brought huge profits. These blaxploitative films at least eliminated the mammy and low-profile images that were characteristic of blacks in the movies made by Hollywood before this era. Some believe that the blaxploitation trend was a token of black empowerment, but others accuse the movies of perpetuating common white stereotypes about black people. As a result, many called for the end of the genre. The NAACP joined forces with the National Urban League and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to form the Coalition Against Blaxploitation. This organization called for an end to the film genre, and by the late 1970s was successful in doing so. Today, black-led projects are still underfunded and undervalued in Hollywood, despite the fact that black film projects often see higher returns than other projects. Blaxploitation films produce some of the best soundtracks of the 70s. Until next time, if you like little-known history facts as I do, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Press the bell to be notified of future uploads. Thank you for watching.